It's 12:05 in the afternoon here on 90.3 FM. It's Wednesday. That means it's time to talk about seniors. Helping Seniors of Brevard is on the air. Let's get things underway with the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard. And we get a daily double with this because he's also the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here's Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Well, thank you, John Harper. And here we are on the very first Wednesday of a brand new year, 2024. We're here. How about that? And welcome. Thanks for joining us again, starting the new year off right on 90.3 FM, WEJF. We get around the radio every Wednesday at lunchtime, and we talk up all the good things that are helpful to you through the Helping Seniors Radio Hour. So welcome if you're listening on WEJF.net or if you're joining us later via a podcast, which you can find us every place from Hey Alexa to iTunes Radio and such. And so today, as we are beginning out on this new year, we're so excited about the road ahead for Helping Seniors of Brevard. We are now officially into our 13th year of service. Joe Steckler, our president and founder, put Helping Seniors together, put it on the map actually in 2011. And that was after he successfully built all those Joe's clubs and everything connected to his work with the Brevard Alzheimer's Association. And so literally just before Christmas, it was the 20th day of December, Joe Steckler celebrated his 90th birthday. And so Joe thought he was coming to a board meeting on the following Thursday, the 21st of December, but we had other plans. Everybody said, we're going to have a 90th birthday party. And so, John Harper, you were there for it, and so is today's guest, another very long-time friend of the Helping Seniors organization. And actually, I think, Bill, you go all the way back with Joe, even to Brevard Alzheimer's days, just like John Harper does, too. I'm talking about board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. Welcome, Bill.
Happy New Year, Kerry.
So that was quite an event, John and Bill, with the for Joe's 90th birthday.
It was. It was fun to see it become a big surprise to Joe, as you mentioned at the outset. He thought it was going to be a board meeting, and it was a meeting of friends and those who support Joe so much in what he has done and what he is doing here with Helping Seniors of Brevard. It was a nice event to be associated with.
It really was. And Bill, you were there, so you saw all of it, but there was a lot of folks who took time out. You've got a schedule that's hard to keep up with yourself, and yet you took the time to come out there and celebrate Joe's 90th.
And from the photos, there were people who were coming in all day kind of thing.
Yes, very much so.
A lot of people came by.
Yeah, we actually had City of Melbourne Vice Mayor. Her name is Yvonne Minus, and she sits together on a group called the Brevard Commission on Aging, and she heard it was Joe's birthday. She said, I think I can do something about that. And so they actually named December 21st, 2023, Joe Steckler Day. And the next step, Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, had come up with an idea which everybody agreed 100%, and that was to rededicate the Senior Resource Center Brevard. That's our 5,600 square foot Helping Seniors facility there in the beautiful Omni Healthcare building right there on the medical campus in Melbourne, Florida, just a block or two from the hospital. We've taken over a good part of the second floor there. And so Nancy said, I think it's fitting that we would rededicate this. So now we call the Senior Resource Center of Brevard Joe's Senior Resource Center of Brevard. And it was just a great day. We put out a video, I think, just yesterday of the vice mayor reading the proclamation to Joe, and then watching Joe cut his 90th birthday cake, which had a great picture. I guess they went to some place where they could put Joe's picture on the cake, and a good time was had by all. But really what we were after, Bill, was to honor the accomplishments that Joe has done for seniors in this community, because I don't think anybody has been a better friend of Joe in this community for seniors than him, starting with Brevard Alzheimer's.
Actually, Kerry, we have a an interview that was recorded during the event, the birthday party for
Yeah.
Joe, and we'd like to play a portion of that now.
Sure.
John Harper with you, and attorney Bill Johnson, a good friend of ours who you've heard on the radio for many years on our Helping Seniors of Brevard show, is with us. And Bill, kind of a special day here today. It's the 90th birthday of Joe Steckler, and also the Senior Resource Center has a new name. It's the Joe Steckler Senior Resource Center. So what are some of your thoughts about Joe turning 90, the things that he's been able to do, and the naming of the center?
Well, if you know anything about Joe, first you have to know that he's a veteran. He's a Naval Academy graduate. So first part of his life was probably quite interesting.
Yeah, full
but-
speed ahead.
Yeah, full speed ahead. And then, to retire and have this whole other career after you retire of community service and founding the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation, and then helping seniors of Brevard, and getting those organizations both off the ground. Both organizations are direct action groups. So it's not like if you contribute to them, the money goes off to California. It stays right here in Brevard, and it is hands-on help for people.
Joe Steckler, certainly a visionary. He's done some great things, as you just mentioned here, Bill, and we're looking forward to seeing what he has behind the curtain for the next big surprise coming up here for the Senior Resource Center and also helping seniors of Brevard.
Yeah.
And Bill, you,
I can't wait to see what he
I
does
know.
for the next 50 years.
yes, Bill, you've been with us many times. We only have about a minute left, but many times on the radio for almost 2 decades now, I guess. And what's one thing that you could tell our listeners they should look out for when they're looking for an elder attorney?
Well, if you look at their credentials, see if they're board certified, because that means they're an expert in the field. And beyond that, there are a lot of reviews these days. People can go online, get plenty of reviews. You can go on the Florida Bar's website and look them up and see if there's been any disciplinary proceedings. So those kinds of things, and generally good word of mouth. If they have good word of mouth, that's usually a pretty good indication that they're legit.
Yeah, and so Bill Johnson, board certified elder law attorney, that was a pretty good introduction that you actually gave yourself about finding a great attorney. So welcome back into the studio.
Thank you, Kerry.
And thank you for being there, seriously, for honoring Joe. I know that meant a tremendous amount to him and Terry, and he said afterwards, he said, "You guys got me." He said, "I really didn't know that was coming." So that was terrific. But we were, seriously, speaking about the mission of helping seniors, our goal is to, Joe has always called it getting an aging plan together, which we in Florida understand hurricane plan, which means you don't want the hurricane, you just want to be ready for anything it might throw at you, and that's the way an aging plan is. And so a couple of years back, we coined the phrase, get your ducks in a row. And so when I was emailing with you, Bill, and saying like, hey, what would be a good topic for us to hit the top of the year about and talk on the radio today, you said, well, why don't we cover getting your legal documents reviewed, because it's kind of a start of a new year, and making sure that what you are thinking you want to do is actually what your documents say you want to do.
Well, I'm going to back up a little even further than that.
Okay.
Because we just came out of the holiday season, and you had an occasion to go visit with your family.
Right.
And, during those visits, you can kind of take stock of what's going on with your parents.
Yeah.
How are they doing mentally? Are they getting forgetful? Have there been any financial mishaps where they've been scammed or something of that nature? How are they on their feet? Are they a fall risk? So you can get a baseline of where they're at, and you should write that down. Keep track of that. So next time you visit, you can see how things are going the next time. And those things about how they're doing health-wise bring up, the next line of questioning. Do they have their estate planning done?
Yeah.
Do they have documents that cover them in the event of incapacity, like a power of attorney, a healthcare surrogate, a living will? Do they have a list of where all their assets are? Or are you going to be standing by the mailbox waiting for mail to come in to figure out where everything is? And, who are their advisors? Who's their life insurance agent, stockbroker, lawyer, accountant, that kind of thing. And then the third thing you could take stock of is what's the plan for long-term care?
Yeah.
Do they have a plan? Do they have long-term care insurance? If they don't, have they talked to an elder law attorney about what it takes to get onto qualifying for Medicaid? So this time of year, or we just came out of the holiday season, is a good time to have all those discussions and figure out all those things. Obviously, if there is some health crisis going on, that there's a memory issue, or they're susceptible to exploitation, or they're not steady on their feet and risk of falls, you need to make sure all the rest of the bases are covered. Additionally, you should always review your documents because during the course of the year, people have died, people have become incapacitated, and that includes children, parents, brothers, sisters, that kind of thing. And you need to go back and look at your documents to make sure, you don't have people who are having their own medical issues named as the decision maker for you in case you have medical issues. Also, you have to review your estate plan to make sure that if somebody's passed away or there's been a divorce or a birth, that your estate plan stays flexible and that it's able to do what you want it to do. So those are just like 3 pointers for, what you should take away from having a visit with your parents. I know it's not the best conversation to have during the holidays, but it is a necessary one.
I was smiling as you were saying that because I know from some experience now over several years of us helping seniors. When we talk to the folks that are in the home help or home care business, they always talk about they start to get a flurry of calls right after various holidays, like Thanksgiving is a big travel one that people come into town and get together as a family. And certainly the whole holidays, Christmas, New Year's, that time everybody gets together. And a lot of times that is what prompts the call from the adult child calling and saying, hey, I was in town, I'm back home, but mom or dad, I'm not sure they can actually handle all this themselves. And I think you're saying the same thing. And I want to kind of preface this by saying we call it getting your ducks in a row, which is the idea that you should have this aging plan and be working on these things exactly, Bill, to your point. And we've learned two things along the way. Last year, we added a corollary to this, which we were saying, don't try this on your own. We say we're kind of using barnyard animals. So you get your ducks in a row, and then we say be wise and don't try this on your own. So you're wise like an owl. And then we've added a new one for 2024, which I think is very important as well. And we say, don't be an ostrich. Don't stick your head in the sand, put this stuff off, and believe somehow it's all going to go away. Because it would go away, but not in the way that maybe you have in mind. And so, Bill, one of the things that is really kind of like a foundational point of any aging plan is getting those key legal documents set aside so that it helps you on the health side, it helps you on the financial side, it helps you on the estate planning side, and all of that.
That is a very good point. I cannot tell you how many times I've done a guardianship for somebody's parent, and guardianships where you go to court and have to have them legally incapacitated just because their parent never did a durable power of attorney, so nobody has access to the money to pay for the care. So then we're stuck doing a guardianship for $10,000 to get somebody appointed to have access so that we can pay the bills. And after we're like in that process and we got somebody appointed, I always turn around to the family member, the son or daughter, and say, well, have you done a durable power of attorney?
Right.
And invariably, 75% of them say no.
Right.
And they said, oh, so we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop and something to happen to you. And now now your kids will have to go through all this.
Yeah.
Just like you did.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about that, it really comes back to we're always good as we get to the start of a new year. We always are going to make these New Year's resolutions, and we're going to do this better, and we're going to do that better. We're going to lose that weight, especially after all the great holiday food and things like that. But one of the points that you're really hitting on is that while we are motivated to get stuff done, this is a really good time of year to maybe take a look and see, do I actually have what I need in place for what we're talking about?
And again, to make sure, break it out, because most people, after they do all these documents, stick them in a folder in a file cabinet somewhere and never look at them again. So it would be good to break it out. Does it say what you want it to say? Does it do what you want it to do? Are the people you've named, even alive? Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you named other people because your kids were too young, and now your kids are older and they would be able to fill in. So there are, like I said, these are living documents and you need to treat them that way.
That really is the key point, because there's several things that we've tackled, like individually show by show, on some of these points. Like we have talked about the fact that so many people are settling in Florida now that may have come from, up north, the Midwest, out west, wherever, and they land in Florida, say, I'm going to spend my golden years here in the sunshine of Florida and really enjoy myself. And they may have had like great expert help up north or out in the Midwest or whatever who helped them get a package together. But there are things that are different in Florida, and you can't necessarily just assume that what the attorney put together up in, I don't know, pick on New York State for a minute, wrote for you 10 years ago is actually going to do what you need it to do now that you're in Florida.
And that's a great point. If you move to another state, you should always have the documents reviewed by an attorney in that state. And also, about every 5 years at a minimum, or if there's a major life event, like I said, a death, a birth, a divorce, something like that, or marriage, you should go back and make sure the documents do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I think when we get into the second half of the show, we're going to go over what those documents really contain, so you can actually make like a little checklist from what board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson and I are talking about today. But there's a second point. Suppose that you thought you were being all clever and you had gone online, you saw a commercial, and it said, oh, you can do all your estate planning so cheap online. Here's little buttons. You click this and you say, I want to leave this to that person and that to this person. And yet, Bill, you have personally witnessed how many times that goes horribly wrong when it actually gets put into practice.
It is, because they have to be executed properly, and a lot of people think that's optional. It is not.
Wow.
And then some people don't proofread it.
Yeah.
And so it's got... I give my wife 100% of my estate, and then the next paragraph is I give 100% of my estate to my kids.
Can't do that, right?
Can't do that. So they clicked on the wrong choice. We're soon going to be having AI-created documents. I know probably everybody's sick of hearing about that, but again, which could have the same kind of problems as well.
I think that's the point. Maybe you had thought you were being clever and you did this with some online service, but as we're here going into the new year and we're all making the resolutions about we want to get it right in 2024, now would be a good time to come clean and bring those in and have somebody take a look at them to see if it is what you had in mind. Because I think, Bill, one of the caveats that we talk about over and over is the problem is when you need this paperwork to work, you have no option for a do-over. It's like mission critical. If it wasn't right, it's not going to help you.
Correct. And generally, especially with the both the incapacity and the estate planning documents. Obviously, with the estate planning documents, you're deceased.
Yeah.
So there's no chance to really fix something, though there is some ways we can do some things. But and then with the incapacity documents, once you lose capacity, well, we can't have you sign any new documents.
Right.
And so, you might have named your kid to be your power of attorney, and that may be the guy who's currently in federal prison for embezzlement, which may not be the guy we want in charge of the money.
Right. Well, and then the third reason that this is a time of year to really kind of take stock and figure out where you are. Again, we talked about a number of people moving into Florida who may need a document review, maybe people who tried it on their own who really definitely need a document review. But the third is what you were already alluding to, is like maybe situations have changed and the people that you said, I want this person to be my personal representative or executor, I think they call it in the other states. But when you start talking about the people that you've actually named, maybe it's not appropriate, or like you said, somebody's gone to jail and that really shouldn't be the person in charge of that, or there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens.
Yeah, there is. There's definitely all kinds of crazy things that happen that may make you rethink the choices that you've made in your documents.
Yeah, we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. And Bill, you have been a friend of Helping Seniors going back to the day Joe started it, and before that, helping Joe and Brevard Alzheimer's. But you do a lot of education. You do seminars where you're getting people like a little bit more hands-on to think about the things they need to think about. And you always have like a list of these coming up. What's a good way to find out or get in touch and say, hey, maybe I do need to do a document review, or whatever they're thinking?
Well, generally they listed in Senior Scene magazine.
Right.
We do them at one senior place. You can go to their website, or you can call them.
Okay. Well, good. We're going to be back for the second half of Helping Seniors Radio. See you in just a moment.
And you're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard. Our time coming up on 12:34. And let's reintroduce the host of the show and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here is Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Hey, thank you, John Harper. Always good to be back with you for the second half of our lunchtime gathering on the radio, Wednesdays, 12 noon to 1 p.m., right here on 90.3 FM WEJF. And welcome back online, WEJF.net. And if you're continuing along the podcast, thank you for being with us. Our guest today is none other than longtime friend of the Helping Seniors organization, goes all the way back even to Joe Steckler's Brevard Alzheimer's days. We're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. And we're having a talk about the paperwork that you need. We're all busy we've had a great holiday time. Hopefully you did as well. And we are talking about these New Year's resolutions that always come up, and we say, this year, I'm going to get on top of it. I'm going to get my ducks in a row. I'm going to get my paperwork straightened out. I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to do all these different things. But today we're focused on that paperwork, Bill. And we were talking about that. Joe calls it an aging plan. We call it getting your ducks in a row. And a couple of lessons along the way, we say, be wise like an owl. Don't try this on your own, because really here in Brevard County, we are so blessed simply because of the number of seniors that have chosen to call Brevard County home. There is a lot of really good, reputable, quality help that's available to you. So there's no reason to try this on your own. And Bill, just before we leave that topic and we jump forward, I just want to say, I guess that expression, penny wise and pound foolish, we think we're going to save money because we're going to go to some lady at church who knows how to write up documents or something, or we see a great ad on TV and it makes it look so simple, and we think we're smart, we're intelligent, we've been to school, we think we can do this stuff on our own. But then we find out we're in way over our head, and the problem is we don't even realize we're in the deep end of the pool until it's too late.
Give a hoot.
That's it. And then
keeping with the theme.
Yeah.
You can save tons of money and end up costing you tens of thousands of dollars at the end.
Yeah, I think this is the point that those of us who are kind of casual to this don't understand. They say, oh, listen, you can get a subscription online and it's, I don't know, what it costs, but versus a fairly nominal cost to sit down with somebody who really understands this matter, versus and then you're prepared, because when that document you tried to do yourself or with the help of a business card that you plucked off of a bulletin board someplace, and that person's nowhere to be found and probably wasn't qualified to help you with this to start with. Now, like we've talked about, all of a sudden things have gone bad. You've got a guardianship, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars versus hundreds.
Correct, and you're exactly right. You're saving a few nickels, but you're going to end up paying in the end.
Yeah, so that's why we say be wise like an owl and don't try this on your own. And then this year, which is really the point of our show today, we've introduced an ostrich into our little barnyard family. We got ducks, we got owls, now we got an ostrich, because an ostrich is known for sticking their head in the sand and kind of ignoring stuff that they should be dealing with. And all too often, Bill, that's what we end up doing. I guess it's not fun, right? Or we don't think it's fun. We think it's complicated. We think we've got to make tough decisions. We're not even sure what the right questions are asked. So I guess the inevitable thing is I'll do that tomorrow. But every day we say the same thing.
Well, in my first example, we were talking about what you should take stock of when you are visiting your parents' house.
Right.
And then we were talking about not sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich and making sure your stuff is done correctly.
Right.
The third category is your children.
Yeah.
Now, they're all coming to visit. You're all going to be around the dinner table. And we don't think about this as parents very often, but what happens if one of your children becomes disabled? A car accident, God forbid, or something like that, where all of a sudden you find yourself needing power of attorney for your child.
Yes.
To get into a bank account or a 401k to pay their bills. If they're not married, especially if they're married, make sure that, the spouse has that, but you also need to make sure that your kids' ducks are all in a row. We tend, to discount the chance of a major health event because our kids are young. So we just don't ever think about that. But I can tell you there's accidents, car accidents, motorcycle accidents, all kinds of things where I've seen young people totally incapacitated and regrettably have had to do guardianships on a lot of them just because they didn't have any documents set up.
Well, I think one of the first times I became aware of that is we have grown children. And I remember kind of hearing, very surprised that, when your daughter is 17 years old, 364 days old, you're still her guardian. But when the minute they turn 18 and they have to go to the hospital or something, that you can't assume that you have any
rights.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And so this person is really, from that perspective, the minute they turned 18, they're totally on their own. And so having all that paperwork set up is the same kind of protection that you would think you would want at any age.
And including if they're just going off to college. You need to have that stuff just in case something happens.
I guess that would be like a real shocker, right? You send your daughter off to college and something happens wherever college is and you find out you can't get the information or you can't help make decisions, and it's all because you never thought about having that kind of paperwork in place.
Correct. And your daughter never named you as a HIPAA agent.
Right.
And so you can't see the medical file. You can't talk to the doctors.
But this is the point that we can turn this from a negative into a positive, because this is about getting your ducks in a row. This is about not trying this on your own. This is about not being an ostrich. And so we kind of promised we're going to try to compile, if you want to grab a piece of paper, and at least we'll start at the top level, that there is a certain checklist of documents that you probably do want to review. Or, God forbid, you don't have them. We need to get you to a place where you can get these things done, right?
Correct. And you have to be aware of how the interplay of beneficiary designations and people named as beneficiary in a will or a trust all interplay. having the incapacity documents like a durable power of attorney, a designation of healthcare surrogate, a living will. And then, the third thing is, what if there is a long-term care event?
Right.
How do we pay for that? And, that's going to fall more on yourself if you're aged, or maybe your parents.
Right.
We're getting to the age all the boomers are beginning to retire, and all their parents are in their 80s.
Yeah, and that's a point that you brought up, which I see happen fairly often on the Helping Seniors info line. That's that free call, 321-473-7770. That Helping Seniors has operated now going into 13 years. And people will call in, and sometimes it's surprising, like mom's going into the hospital, and I've got the other way around. I'm going in the hospital, and I'm mom's caregiver. And so who's going to help mom if I'm laid up in the hospital? And it turns out mom is in her 90s, but daughter is in her late 60s. And so there's all these different things and scenarios you need to think through. So I guess, Bill, if somebody was to come and sit down with you, or maybe they go to one of the seminars and are just trying to get information, there's like a checklist of things. Like, let's say these are the things that we want to go through and make sure that we have together. Well, I know we've mentioned power of attorney. That's the tool that lets somebody else make decisions for you when you can't, right?
Correct. Usually manage your finances.
Okay. And as I've learned from you, that it's quite a different story in Florida than it is in another state.
Correct, because we have some requirements in Florida. Biggest one is that unless you specifically give somebody a power, they do not have it. So a lot of states are very laissez-faire about granting powers. It just says simply like to do real estate transactions. And, well, that doesn't work in Florida.
And I think this is the point, is like you might have had somebody quite competent do some documents for you up north. You come down here and you're going to assume, and we know what they say about that word, assume, that those documents are going to do what you want to have them do down here. But it wouldn't necessarily, you can't assume that.
And you probably named all your decision makers people living in the state you just moved from.
Well, that's another point. So we got the power of attorney. What's another document that you for sure say? Well, it's the healthcare thing, right?
Yeah, either a designation of healthcare a surrogate or a durable power of attorney for healthcare.
And that means that if I wind up in a hospital and I can't call the shots, that somebody else has authority to say this is what we need to do, or to agree with the doctor or disagree with the doctor or whatever.
And also have access to your medical records.
Right, because in our example, we were just talking about that daughter off at college who might have been in a horrible car wreck, and you're the worried parent back home trying to chase this down, and they're like, we can't tell you anything,
Right.
I'm sure that happens.
And then the living will, which is your end-of-life decisions, whether or not you want life support continued, if you're in a terminal condition, an end-stage condition, or a persistent vegetative state.
Okay.
So those are the incapacity documents, and then you should have, at a minimum, a will, and maybe some people have a trust as well, and also know what your beneficiary designations say.
Right, because we always have talked about this. If you don't have a plan for what you want to have done with your stuff, the government has a plan. It just may not be one that's what you had in mind.
And speaking of stuff, you need to have a notebook where you put where all your stuff is. Like, where are your investment accounts? Some people just have like one brokerage company. All their accounts at this company, and it's all on the statement. Some people have a Vanguard account, a Charles Schwab account, a Merrill Lynch account. They have like 10 different accounts at 10 different locations.
Yeah.
And if you don't know where that is, it's a big headache. Same with life insurance. Some people have like one life insurance policy. Other people, we had a guy who had something like 30 life insurance policies.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have to know where those are. Annuity contracts, we need to know where those are.
Yeah.
If you have long-term care insurance, that needs to be in the binder too. So we need all that stuff in the binder as well as your contacts. Who's your attorney, who's your accountant, who's your broker, who's your life insurance agent.
Yeah.
So we have the list of all these information of who to contact that can help us get through this.
Yeah, I'm smiling as you say that because so often we'll read a news story or hear about, this person dies and they thought that person was destitute, and then they find out there's all this other stuff out there. Or the flip side happens that somebody passes away and the family knows that there was stuff out there, but maybe this person moved from city to city and there's a bank account in Fargo, North Dakota, and now there's one, and how do you know?
True. There is no central clearinghouse that just automatically tells us you have bank accounts in these states.
Yeah.
There is no such thing. There's nothing like that for life insurance either.
Wow.
Though there was a case where one of the big life insurance companies got sued because somebody filed a claim to collect on one policy, and the company didn't tell them there were 3 other ones.
Oh, wow.
It was just kind of like hoping they didn't realize that so they could keep all that money.
Wow.
So they do have to tell you all the policies that are at any individual company. But you know how many life insurance companies there are in the United States?
Yeah.
There's a lot. So if we don't have that paperwork, it's a real headache. And your annuity contract, that's a big one as well. So it's best to have all that in a notebook with, copies of all your important documents, put your originals in a fireproof safe or a safe deposit box, and then make sure somebody has access to that. I've had to have several safes and safe deposit boxes drilled open.
Yeah.
And so, but have that notebook where everything is, and if you have funeral arrangements, or specific wishes, you can put that in the notebook and people to contact, and you can make it into quite a big thing that should cover everything.
Well, that just makes sense. And I think, too, we talk about the value of doing this not only for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're protecting what you have in mind for yourself while you're living and what you have in mind for those you care about when you're not. But there's another thought process here that you're actually doing this, I think, for your family as well, because you're saving them a lot of stress because, whether it's a medical situation or somebody passes away suddenly, there's all of a sudden all these decisions that have to be made seemingly in a very short period of time.
In crisis mode.
And then you have all this stress about trying to, is this what they wanted us to do? Is this what do they have in mind? And you don't know.
Correct. Also, you should, in the book, some people even put their obituary. They write their own obituary.
Yeah.
Because who's a better historian of your life than you? So some people go at great lengths and write out their obituary.
Well, all of this makes sense because I was thinking, if you love your family, you would want to do this. If you hate your family, you still would want to do this, right? Because you have in mind what you want to do, and you want to see that that's going to happen correctly, but ideally without stressing out the people. I know as an attorney, you get involved a lot of times when, when it's not clear, and then the families are kind of feuding about, that I was supposed to have that or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So what is the best method? I mean, you've done this for years. You're board certified in elder law. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's the best approach that somebody who's motivated says, okay, I'm going to get this right in the new year? What do you tell? Should they come to? I know you publish a booklet that's really helpful about that kind of covers an overview of all this, and it's available on your website. I guess you could call your office or things like that. You also do a lot of seminars where you're educating people. Lord knows we've got a lot of television and radio shows where we've tackled almost every little topic is a topic by itself that we've even mentioned today. But what do you suggest?
I would suggest you go educate yourself first. And you can do that again by seminars, go online, watch videos,
Yeah.
YouTube. You can talk to a variety of people, friends, neighbors, that kind of thing. And then once you kind of understand the lingo and what you want to do, then best to just go sit down with a lawyer.
Yeah, I want to let me expand on that for 2 seconds. One, when you talked about TV and radio and things like that, the Helping Seniors organization has carefully archived, libraried, whatever you want to use the word. We put together like all the TV shows that Bill, you've done going back with Joe. We've done a lot together too. They're all on the Helping Seniors website, Helping Seniors of Brevard. If you just go in there and search Bill Johnson, they'll all like pop up, and you can see articles that Bill has written. You could see the radio shows we've done together, and they're all listed by topic. So, like if one time we were talking about guardianship, there would be a show on that. If we were talking about power of attorney, there would be a show on that. You can find those. You can also find those. There's a Helping Seniors of Brevard YouTube channel. There's also a Facebook page where we put all the videos. And so you can easily access that. But another thing is, we were talking about, if you remember in the, just before we got to the mid-show break, we were talking about, Bill, that you do a lot of these seminars over at One Senior Place. And it's a great location where you can actually come in. What are these, about an hour or something? Or
Yeah, I'd try to keep it under an hour.
And so you really coming in and get like a real familiar, like, I guess you can sit there with a piece of paper and jot down some notes and really help get your thinking in order. But another tool that I really like is that book that you publish. It comes out in Boomer Guide, and you've been doing this for years. But what I really enjoyed about it is that it's not written in what I would call legalese. You can actually understand the concepts that are being presented and how it benefits you. So, Bill, if somebody wanted to get a copy of that book, do they reach your office? Or
Yeah, they can call us at the office at 321-253-1667, and we can send them a copy of that. Or if they go to One Senior Place, they're in the library there.
Yeah, we should have those. If we don't have them, we should have them in the Senior Resource Center as well. And I'll tell you why I think this is so important is when you look at that little booklet, and it's not huge. It's really easy to digest because it's not, we think of lawyers, and I guess I'm not sure it's really how you do things now, but we always imagine the lawyer's library with all these big books on the shelf, and you've really done a great job of distilling this down into what I would almost call like a pamphlet size thing. But what's great about it is it raises all these things that you should be thinking about and help you kind of navigate to a plan to get some of these things done rather than just putting it off,
And that was the whole aim of the book, was initially families have somebody going into like a long-term care facility.
Sure.
And the social work at the hospital or at the facility tells them something, and then they walk out the door and they forgot what was said.
Yeah.
So I I created this book that the social workers can literally hand to the patient's family and say, here, this, has a lot of the information that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. Highly encourage you to take advantage of what we've been talking about today. Go shift gears with a minute or so that I got left in the show and give you a couple of dates that I would like for you to jot down and think about. First of all, you do want to check out the dates when Bill has his seminars that are coming up at One Senior Place. Again, we were talking about you can go to the Senior Scene magazine, pick up your free copy, and it's always published in there. I'm sure if you call over to One Senior Place, they could give you the dates or check with Bill's office. But a couple of the dates I want to share with you. On Saturday, July 20th, we're going to be doing our Breakfast with an Attorney series, which is part of the Palm Bay 55-plus renters workshop series that we've been doing together in cooperation with the city of Palm Bay using funds from federal CDBG dollars. And what this is geared to do is educate you on something called the Florida Eviction Prevention Project. So attorney Frank Scaglione volunteers to lead this breakfast with an attorney is what we call it. But if you're a senior renter in Palm Bay, you get literally a couple of hours with the attorney where he educates you on your rights as a Florida renter. So everything that you understand that you have rights to, what the landlord can do, can't do. And the reason we started this project is because we get so many calls from people who are in housing challenges. So if you'd like more information about that, call us at 321-473-7770. The other date that I'd like to give you real quickly, so again, that was Saturday, January 20th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon at Meemaw's Barbecue. But you do have to RSVP because we have to get you qualified in there for that. The second thing, though, and it's open to everybody, is on January 25th. That's a Thursday, January 25th. The fourth Thursday of January, we will be together at the Senior Resource Center, Brevard. We are doing a health and wellness session there each fourth Thursday, together with our friends from Care Plus and Omni Healthcare. And this time, you don't want to miss it. We've got some great things, including the Dementia Live experience, which is an interesting thing. If you've never participated in that, you can either view it as a spectator or participate in it, but you'll get an insight into what it must be like living on a dementia journey. So for information on that, call us at 321-473-7770. And so with that, I want to thank our board-certified elder law attorney, Bill Johnson, for sharing some great tips to help us not be ostriches and sticking our heads in the sand. One more time, the best number to reach if you've got questions or want to get that booklet we were talking about.
It's 321-253-1667. Also, I'm doing a Medicaid seminar on January 19th from 10 to 11, and an estate planning seminar on January 25th from 10 to 11, both at one senior place.
Oh, these are important dates to jot down and take advantage of that expertise. We'll see you next week when we come back for Helping Seniors Radio. Have a great week here to there.